If your heart feels heavy tonight, this psalm is for you. Not because you searched for it, not because the algorithm decided so, but because in this moment, your soul needed shelter. Take a slow breath, not to relax, but to arrive. Because what you're about to hear is not noise. It's refuge. There are nights when the world feels louder than usual. Your phone keeps lighting up. Your mind refuses to turn off. Your body is tired, but rest doesn't come. You lie there, staring at the ceiling, and even silence feels heavy. Not empty. Heavy. Heavy with thoughts you didn't invite. Heavy with fears you didn't choose. Heavy with questions that don't have answers yet. What if something goes wrong tomorrow? What if the decision you're about to make is the wrong one? What if the protection you're hoping for doesn't arrive in time? We live in an age where danger doesn't always look like danger. It comes disguised as stress, as pressure, as responsibility, as the constant feeling that you must stay alert, because if you don't, everything might fall apart. And slowly, without noticing, your heart forgets what safety feels like. That's why this psalm exists. Psalm 9:1 was not written for perfect days. It was written for moments like this. Moments when fear whispers louder than faith, when exhaustion weakens trust, when protection feels distant. This is not a psalm for the fearless. It is a psalm for those who feel vulnerable and still choose to trust. Because God's protection was never promised as the absence of trouble. It was promised as presence within it. And God's protection is written here, not as poetry alone, but as a shield. Think about your life right now. What are you protecting yourself from? Maybe it's fear about the future. Maybe it's anxiety that tightens your chest without warning. Maybe it's the weight of providing, deciding, enduring. Or maybe it's something you can't even name. Just a sense that you're exposed. That one unexpected moment could undo everything you built. Modern life trains us to rely on control. Plans, insurance, backups, strategies. But control has limits. And deep down, you know it. No plan can guard your heart at 3 a.m. No strategy can silence fear when you're alone with your thoughts. No preparation can guarantee peace. That's why Psalm 91 begins not with action, but with position. It doesn't say, those who fight harder, or those who understand everything. It says, whoever dwells, not visits, not checks in occasionally, dwells. To dwell means to remain, to stay, to live from that place. This psalm invites you into a space where protection is not earned, it is inhabited. A place where God is not distant, not reactive, not late. A place where fear does not get the final word. But before we read it, I want you to do something quietly. Bring to mind the thing that worries you the most right now. Don't analyze it. Don't fix it. Just acknowledge it. That thing, that weight, that fear, you don't have to carry it alone through this psalm. Because Psalm 91 doesn't ignore danger. It names it. It speaks of traps, of terror by night, of arrows by day, of disease, of destruction. In other words, it speaks the language of real life. And yet, through all of that, it repeats one message in different forms. You are not exposed. You are not unguarded. You are not alone. Protection is not just around you. It is over you, under you, within reach. That's why so many people return to this psalm. When life feels unsafe, soldiers have whispered it before battle. Mothers have prayed it over sleeping children. Hospitals have echoed it in waiting rooms. Lonely hearts have clung to it in the dark. Because God's protection is written here, not as an abstract promise, but as a living assurance. And as we move forward, this is not something you need to rush through. Let the words breathe. Let the pauses speak. Let the silence do its work. In the next moment, we will read Psalm 91 slowly, just as it was meant to be heard, not to inform your mind, but to shelter your heart. Stay here. Remain, because the refuge you're looking for is already open. Now, slow down. Let your breathing become gentle. There is nothing you need to do right now. Nothing you need to solve. Just listen. This psalm is not rushed. It is a shelter. Enter it slowly. Psalm 91. Whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest. In the shadow of the Almighty, I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God, in whom I trust. Surely He will save you from the fowler's snare and from the deadly pestilence. He will cover you with His feathers, and under His wings, perfido, seguimas com consistencia, profundidade y retenceo. Now that you've heard these words, don't rush away from them. Psalm 91 was never meant to stay on the page. It was meant to walk with you into your real life, because protection, in the biblical sense, is not about being removed from the world. It's about being held within it. We often imagine protection as a wall, something solid, something that keeps everything bad outside. But Psalm 91 describes something deeper. It speaks of presence, of covering, of nearness. In other words, God's protection is not distant. God's protection is written here, in a way that meets modern life exactly where it hurts. Think about what danger looks like today. For many, it isn't lions or arrows. It's anxiety that tightens your chest without warning. It's the fear of losing stability. It's the pressure to make the right decision when every option feels risky. It's the exhaustion of always being strong, always being responsible, always being alert. Psalm 91 speaks directly to this when it says, "You will not fear the terror of night." It's not speaking metaphorically. The night is where modern fear lives. The night is when your phone is quiet, but your mind is loud. The night is when worries grow larger, because there is nothing to distract you from them. The psalm doesn't deny that the night exists. It promises that fear does not rule it. Protection here is not the absence of threat. It is the absence of abandonment. You will not fear the arrow that flies by day. The day has its own dangers, deadlines, expectations, decisions that affect others, not just you. The arrows of modern life often look harmless at first. A message, a meeting, a moment where everything suddenly changes. Psalm 91 does not promise that arrows will never fly. It promises they will not define you. That's an important difference. Many people misunderstand faith because they think trusting God means life becomes predictable. But biblical protection is not predictability. It is covering. He will command His angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. Notice this phrase, in all your ways, not just spiritual moments, not just prayer time, not just when you feel strong. All your ways, your commute, your workplace, your conversations, your decisions, your uncertainty. This is where Psalm 91 becomes deeply practical. When you face a decision and don't know the outcome, this psalm doesn't tell you to pretend confidence. It invites you to dwell, to remain in the awareness that you are not navigating alone. Modern anxiety often comes from the illusion that everything depends on you. Psalm 91 quietly dismantles that illusion. It reminds you that protection does not start with your strength, your intelligence, or your preparation. It starts with proximity, dwelling, remaining, staying close. That's why the psalm repeats ideas in different forms. Not because it lacks creativity, but because fear doesn't leave after one sentence. Repetition creates safety. That's also why this video loops emotionally, because protection is something the heart needs to hear more than once. When Psalm 91 says, "With long life I will satisfy him and show him my salvation," it's not only about years lived, it's about depth of peace. A long life without peace feels short. A protected heart, even in uncertainty, feels grounded. This psalm teaches us that divine protection is not fragile. It does not disappear when fear appears. It does not retreat when circumstances change. It stays. And this is where faith becomes practical. Not when you feel brave, but when you feel small. Not when answers are clear, but when questions remain. Psalm 91 gives you permission to stop pretending you are invincible. You don't need to overpower fear. You don't need to suppress anxiety. You don't need to control every outcome. You are invited to rest under something stronger than you. That's why God's protection is written here, not as a slogan, but as a living refuge, a place you can return to again and again and again. In the next block, we will gently repeat the heart of this psalm, creating a loop of reassurance that settles into your spirit. And before that happens, just notice something quietly. You're still here. You're breathing. You're being held. Stay. Stay with these words a little longer. You don't need new information right now. You need reassurance. Because fear doesn't leave after one reminder. Peace settles through repetition. That's why Psalm 91 does not rush forward. It circles back. It covers the same truth from different angles. Just like a parent repeating, "I'm here. I'm not leaving. You're safe." So, let these ideas return gently. You are not exposed. Even when life feels uncertain, even when plans shift, even when answers are delayed, you are not uncovered. Psalm 91 does not say danger disappears. It says you are covered within it. Covered when you understand. Covered when you don't. Covered when you feel strong. Covered when you feel tired. That covering does not depend on your emotional state. You don't lose protection because you feel anxious. You don't lose protection because you feel afraid. You don't lose protection because you feel weak. Protection is not fragile. It is steady. That's why the psalm repeats images of closeness. Shadow, wings, shelter, refuge. These are not distant images. They are near. A shadow only exists when something is close. Wings only cover what they hold. A refuge only works when you enter it. And this brings us back to the word. That started everything. Dwells, not visits, not checks in once in a while, not remembers God only when things go wrong. Dwells. To dwell means to stay mentally, emotionally, spiritually, to return again and again to the same truth. That's why this moment is intentionally repetitive, because your nervous system needs to hear safety more than once. Your heart needs to hear protection more than once. Your spirit needs to rest into truth slowly. So hear it again, gently. You are not walking alone. Even when no one else sees the pressure you carry. Even when no one understands the decisions you face. Even when you feel responsible for outcomes beyond your control. You are not unguarded. Angels are described here not as distant symbols, but as active guardians. Not watching from afar, but assigned, present, involved. This is not meant to create fear. It's meant to dissolve it. Because when protection is real, fear loses authority. And this is where the loop deepens. Every time anxiety rises, this psalm invites you back. Every time uncertainty appears, this truth repeats. Not to overwhelm you, but to stabilize you. That's why God's protection is written here, in words that don't expire. Written for nights like this. Written for seasons like yours. Written for people who need reassurance, not performance. You don't need to prove your faith. You don't need perfect focus. You don't need uninterrupted confidence. You only need to dwell. Even now, even here, let the idea settle. Protection is not something you chase. It is something you rest under. And rest is not an activity. Rest is trust without tension. That's why your breathing slows when safety feels real. That's why your shoulders release when fear loosens its grip. This psalm is not trying to excite you. It's trying to steady you. And if your mind wanders, that's okay. Gently bring it back to the idea that nothing about this moment is accidental, back to the truth that presence itself is protection, back to the reminder that you are not forgotten. Let these words loop quietly in your heart. You are sheltered. You are covered. You are kept. Again, you are sheltered. You are covered. You are kept. This repetition is intentional. It's where peace sinks in. In the next and final block, we will invite your voice into this space. Not loudly, not forcefully, but honestly, because sharing what you're carrying is often the final step into rest. Before you leave this moment, I want to invite you to do something simple, not performative, not complicated, just honest. If Psalm 91 spoke to you tonight, it's because something inside you needed reassurance. And you don't have to keep that to yourself. In a moment, I'll invite you to write a comment, not for visibility, not for numbers, but because naming what you're carrying often releases some of its weight. So take a quiet second and ask yourself, what do you need God's protection over right now? Is it your mind, tired from constant worry? Is it your family, people you love but can't control? Is it your future, uncertain, fragile, undefined? Or maybe it's something you've never said out loud. You don't need perfect words. You can write just one sentence. You can write one word. You can even write amen. If that's all you have the strength for, this space is not a place of judgment. It's a place of cover. When you share, you're not exposing weakness. You're stepping into community. And often when one person speaks, another realizes they're not alone. That's why I invite you, gently, to leave a comment below. Write what you're asking protection for. We read them, we pray over them, and more importantly, God hears them. Before we end, let's return one last time to the heart of this psalm, not as repetition, but as rest. You are not unprotected, even if the answer hasn't arrived yet, even if the outcome is still unclear, even if fear tries to return. Protection does not disappear between prayers. It remains. Psalm 91 doesn't promise a life without storms. It promises a place to stand when storms come. And God's protection is written here, not just on the page, but into your story. So as this video ends, you don't need to rush back into noise. Let the quiet stay with you a little longer. If you want, you can let this video replay. Not because you missed something, but because peace deepens with repetition. Thank you for being here. Thank you for staying. May you rest tonight under the shelter of the Most High. Amen.